All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Friday show. We're all very excited to be here. Looking forward to answering all your questions. To all of you that are new to the show, um, just to kind of break down the format, feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and we're here to answer all the questions. We've got some, Netgear experts here with us on the call. I'll start with myself, probably the least expert level person. I'm Alec. I'm a senior creative design specialist here at NETGEAR, and I work on mostly web design and 3D rendering. And I'm joined by Darren and Michael. If you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
Sure, I'll jump in first. Hey, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm Technical Marketing Manager at NETGEAR. I spend a lot of my time working on our beta products, testing them, done support, just like to play around with our hardware, and I'm here to help answer any questions you got. Over to Darren.
And I'm Darren, a technical support specialist and community moderator at NETGEAR. I handle support questions on our community and across social media.
Cool. And it looks like we've got some regulars in the chat. So we have Ryan back. Welcome back, Ryan. We've got Razor 2048. Welcome back, Razor. And we've got Kieran, our winner of the XR1000, who became a loyal Nigerian after his victory. So, Kieran, welcome back. And it looks like we have somebody in the chat who does need help. Hudson, if you'd like to, let us know what's wrong with whatever product you've got or whatever situation you're in. We're here to help. So definitely, give us some detail on that, and we'll be ready to help you out. But in the meantime, we are all Californians here in the chat, and we are faced with quite the heat wave right now. How's everybody doing with the heat? Are we all avoiding it? Are we in the thick of it? What's up with you guys?
Well, I'm just glad we're not down in Palm Springs because
Mm,
I think the temperature
yeah.
yesterday was like 118. There's some places that are just ridiculously hot.
Oh, that sounds like I'm from Phoenix, so that sounds like Phoenix to me. But I bet
Oh
they.
yeah,
No, not quite as hot. I actually lived in Phoenix for a while,
Mhm.
and Phoenix definitely was a lot better.
It can
Yeah,
hit it
but
can hit 120 in Phoenix pretty
oh yeah,
easily. Pretty
yeah.
easily.
and it's getting hotter there faster now.
Hmm.
Because I think Phoenix was like 114 yesterday.
Standing out on the concrete in Phoenix, it's hot when it's hot outside.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I think the worst is like when you go to like a store and you park your car in the lot, and
Oof.
then I mean obviously the inside of the car is ridiculously hot. But even just walking between the hot metal cars and the asphalt, it's like
Yep.
it's got to be at least like 130. It's just in between the
Oh yeah.
cars.
Yep.
And then once you get in the car, it's probably like 150. It's
You,
hot.
you need to take a cooler with you when you buy frozen food with
Yeah,
those
no
temperatures, or
joke.
your food's going to
Yes.
get.
Seriously. Um,
Yep.
I've seen people wearing oven mitts in their car because like if you have a leather steering wheel, you can't touch it.
Oh yeah.
Or like I
Well,
don't know if you
try.
experienced this, Michael, but like when you're buckling your seatbelt, if you touch the metal on the
Yep.
seatbelt, it like burns your hand. It's
Yep.
ridiculous.
And wearing shorts and sitting down on leather
Mm,
seats.
yes.
Oh yeah.
And obviously you have to wear shorts because it's
It's
120.
hot.
The
Yep.
worst one for me is you go through a drive-through and there's this metal trim where the window
Oh
is, and you stick your
yes.
arm on it and you just burn the bottom of your arm when
Mm,
you reach over to get something.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. And
Yep.
actually, it was in the news yesterday. They were saying that there was a lot of people that were burning the bottom of their feet because they weren't paying attention to actually how hot concrete was getting.
Yeah, it gets really hot there. I feel
Mhm.
really bad for people that walk their dogs in that weather because the dogs like they need like boots or something because they can't deal with that. I mean their feet burn. I
Yep.
see it all the
No, you're
time.
supposed to walk your dogs early in the morning before it gets that hot.
Yeah, I remember like gosh, even early in the morning though, it's like I mean you're hitting 90 at like 8 a.m.
Oh yeah. Well, I
It's
remember
crazy.
when I lived in Phoenix, went out to the movies and got out at like I think it was 11:30, almost midnight, and it was still 95 degrees. So yeah, just disgustingly hot.
One of my favorite things about the hot Arizona summers though is like everybody has a pool pretty much. I don't think I know anybody that doesn't have a pool in Arizona.
Yep.
Um, and I really loved like midnight swimming. It was so much fun. Like we had this little like floaty thing that was like a disco ball that would like project lights on the
Oh,
pool.
cool.
And like like night swimming is so much fun. I don't know why. Um, that was a
Well,
good
that's when the
time.
temperature at least is livable outside.
Yeah, yeah. And water retains heat better than the air does. So the water's like still like a comfortable level. It's not too cold.
Yep.
Blending with Henry
Yeah, and
says
Hamad,
Pleasanton.
yeah, I was going to mention to Hamad, he asked where Ben was at. He's out with his daughter. We think it's graduation right now.
So congrats to his daughter graduating, I think, I don't know, first grade. Good job. And then we have Blending with Henry here, one of our regulars. Welcome back. We also have Hamad, another regular. Welcome back to you as well. Pleasanton, California, 100 degrees will top out at 104. Gosh, I mean, I've heard the East Bay is really getting hit with the heat wave. I was actually just in Oakland this weekend doing a hike on Sunday, and it was pretty hot. I mean, the whole hike was like under the trees, but it was still hot. I was sweating. It was no joke.
Yep, and it wasn't as hot last weekend. The temp just kept going up. So think about trying to do that now.
Mhm. Yeah. It looks like we've got some comments about Windows
Windows 11.
11. I don't know if anybody here I mean, you guys are Windows users, right?
Yep.
I've looked at it. I've watched people. I guess the only way you can really, you got to get a bootleg of it, and then you got to install it on a virtual machine to look at it. Really.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I'm curious. I'll have to look into that because I do have a PC here. I don't use it as much as my Mac, but it's my gaming PC, and that has Windows, so I'm curious to see the changes.
They're having a press conference on it at the end of the month, showing us it, but it got out early. Someone leaked it.
I find it funny that they're actually coming out with the Windows 11 because they swore Windows 10 was the last one they were going to be making.
Mhm.
I think they swore that, meaning that it's the last one we'll have to buy. I think this will just be an upgrade to Windows 10.
That wouldn't be too bad. Just don't make it all just a cloud-based service
Mhm.
like Office 365.
Oh, I hate Office 365.
Completely agree.
What was I gonna say? It sounds kind of like I mean, I don't want to draw too many parallels between the two, but it sounds kind of like their business approach is similar to Mac then, right? Like you don't have to pay for Mac OS. You have to buy a Mac, obviously, and then everything is just kind of an update, really.
You still have to buy Windows once, and then after that, all the
Got it.
upgrades are free.
Okay. Well, interesting. I'm interested to see. I always love when I get a new software. Like I think it's fun. I mean, obviously you're a little uncomfortable for a bit. You don't know what's going on, but I always think it's fun to learn. Like this has been my first Mac, and I've enjoyed learning it.
And it's a way that hardware vendors can sell faster, more powerful equipment.
Mhm.
I know for every new version of Windows, it usually eats up more resources. So you then have to upgrade your hardware to be able to support the new Windows. And it's a never-ending cycle.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, we do have a question actually here from Peter. This is more of a Ben question. Unfortunately, he's not here right now. When will hybrid VPN and ad blocker be added to the XR1000? So I believe hybrid VPN is already a feature on the XR1000. You should be able to. It's not.
No, it's not there yet. They're working hard on it, and it is coming, but I don't have an exact date when it's coming. But those features will be added at a later date on the XR1000.
Gotcha. It's on the XR500 though, correct? Hybrid
Yeah,
VPN?
it's on those right now. Yeah, this is 500 and 700, but not the 1000.
Got it. Okay, my mistake. I thought it was on that as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, the Doom OS team, they're always working hard on that kind of stuff, so hopefully it'll come out sooner than later. Let's see here.
Oh, yeah, and also talking about Windows 11, I did see the notice that Microsoft said they'll be ending support for Windows 10 on October 14th, 2025. So they're already planning on EOLing Windows 10.
But they did that with all the other Windows,
isn't it?
And they extended it, and they extended it, and they extended it.
Yeah,
Well, I saw somewhere where they said that there is still something like 100 million copies of Windows 7 running in the world.
I believe it.
I bet
Yep.
there's a couple million of XP still running too.
Yeah. Yes.
Windows 7, my favorite Windows. I love Windows 7. I mean, obviously it's slower than Windows 10, so there's no really like good use case for it. But I remember when that was the Windows operating system, that was my favorite one, hands down. Windows 8, garbage. Windows
Oh
10,
yeah.
it's all right.
No,
Yeah,
Windows 8 absolutely piece of garbage. It never got a big foothold because
Yeah.
it was a horrible OS.
It rivaled Vista
Vista.
for being horrible.
Hmm.
Uh, ME was terrible too.
Yep.
I
Well, I had a
never
friend
used that
that
one.
used to run Windows Vista long after it should have been retired,
Mhm.
and he'd come to our Geek Fest for gaming, and we would have to spend a couple of hours getting his one Windows Vista machine to talk to the rest of our systems.
That's crazy. Yeah, Windows
Yeah.
Vista, it like I really, really liked the direction they went from like a visual perspective. I thought it looked very good,
Hmm.
but oh God, there's just no good functionality on that thing. Like I remember I had an XP. This was back in like my youth when I mean, like when I was like really into like tinkering with computers. But I remember I like torrented Windows. I shouldn't say this. I torrented Windows Vista on like my little tiny MSI laptop, and I was so excited to get the new version. And I was like, gosh, XP was better. I should not have
Yep.
done this. Those were the
Yep.
days.
And I have to ask Vanessa Kitty, those three Windows floppy disks, are they even readable anymore? I used to have some old disks that sitting around, they got to a point where they couldn't even be read. The data just corrupted over time.
Yeah, these things do have a shelf life.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Were zip
Even,
disks more reliable over age? I don't even know.
um, well, CDs got more reliable than the floppy disks, but even CDs, if they sit around too long, will start to break down.
Right, right.
Um, yep. And even hard drives, which is why it's always good to buy a newer, bigger hard drive to copy your old stuff over before it dies.
I
Razor's
have a
talking
bunch
about
of old
how
printers. Yeah.
yeah,
Go
Razor's here
ahead.
talking about how the updates are like pretty poor UI decisions.
Yes.
I'm curious to see how it's not in its final state, so hopefully they're able to make some changes. But I tend to notice that a lot of these tech companies, once they do something that people tend not to like, but it's fundamental to their release, they'll stand by it. So truthfully, I doubt they'll change it. Like I feel like they kind of have this direction in mind of what they want, the future of the product to be. And if you don't like it, that's too bad. They already have their decision made. So frankly, I doubt we'll see a change in that.
Yeah. And just in general, every new version of Windows is that much more bloatware. All the files get bigger.
Yeah.
Everything in it just tends to get larger and less efficient. And often their GUI designs, like the tiles in Windows, instead of having a
Oh,
nice file
I
listing,
hate the
are
tiles.
ridiculous. They're a waste of time, but they won't get rid of them. They
Hmm.
just keep bringing them back. But I've tossed in a third-party app that switches everything back so Windows looks more like Windows 7
Hmm.
and works great, easy to work around. But in general, yeah, it just turns into bloatware. And part of it is because most of the time they're carrying over older code from the previous OS. They're not writing everything from scratch. All they're doing is bringing over the older code, making modifications, adding more stuff on top of it for the next version of Windows. Part of
Right.
it's for backward compatibility, and part of it is if you've got probably a billion lines of code, you're not going to go and rewrite all of that.
Yeah, but there's still code from like Windows 97 somewhere in there.
Yep. So I
If
guarantee
you
you
dig
there's
deep
some of
enough.
that code.
If you dig deep enough. All right, so we have a question here from Prem that we can very, very happily answer. Is there any upcoming RXE Wi-Fi 6 router? I think you've got kind of some conflicting terms here, so let us clarify. Our RAXE line is a Wi-Fi 6E router, right? So we have a Wi-Fi 6E router. Um, and I can't speak to the future, but as you can imagine, we probably intend to expand on that technology. Can't give any specifics there, but we have one. It's called the RXE 500. It's currently our top of the line router. It's great. I personally haven't gotten my hands on one, but I've heard amazing things about it. And then regarding Wi-Fi 6, just strictly Wi-Fi 6 router, we've got a ton. We've really expanded the portfolio, and there is something at every price point. So
yep, and mesh as well as non-mesh.
Yes. We currently do not have a mesh Wi-Fi 6E solution, but if you're just looking for the router, we've got that for you.
Yep. And Warrior One wants to know if there's any news on the XR 1000 firmware updates. It's been about 5 to 6 months since the last update. Well, that's definitely a Ben question.
Yeah, we don't have Ben with us currently, unfortunately.
It's kind of same as what we answered earlier. They are working really hard on these apps and features coming to the XR 1000. I think that you're asking for in this update, but we don't have an actual timeline on when that'll be released.
Yeah, the team is really quite small, so we can't give a specific date on that.
And yep, Razor's right about Vista, that it loaded up a ton of tiny files.
Mm-hmm.
And that did slow it down. It was single threaded, which means it was basically just loading them in series instead of parallel. And yeah, I remember watching it when it would load Vista up, and there were probably thousands of files that it was loading up, all these tiny little chunks. And yeah, the boot up time was a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that, like back when I had that little tiny MSI laptop. It's like a $300 laptop, which, I mean, it was such a bad laptop. It would take probably like 3 to 4 minutes to boot up Windows Vista. It was quite atrocious. All right, we have a question here from Prem, and Prem asks, I have an R9000P router. Internet light is not on. Did a loop to backtest the internet light, and it's off on Ethernet. I'm not sure. Do you understand this question, Mike? I'm not sure I'm following it too well.
Well, it sounds like his internet light on his router isn't on right now.
Right.
And it looks like he tried doing a loop back test, basically running a cable from LAN port into his WAN port to see if the light would actually come on. Mm-hmm. It didn't come on. And if this is accurate the way I'm reading it, it sounds like the IP address that he's getting right now is a 169.254.
Mm-hmm.
That normally means the DHCP server on the router isn't giving out any IP addresses, which would be a different issue than whether or not the internet light is on. Prim, are you talking about when you're doing that loopback test, or that's the actual IP address that your client is getting that IP scheme? If your clients are getting that IP, then that means that your the DNS server or DHCP server in your router is not working, because it's supposed to be handing out IP addresses. The router light being off, that's a different thing. It could just be that the light itself is been turned off, or the light is burnt out, or the third option is there's no internet connection there. So a little bit more information might be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let us know, Prem. We're happy to give you our thoughts and our potential solutions for that. Cool.
And Vanessa's still running an R9000 that keeps chugging along. Yep, I use that for a very long time. And in fact, I think that's what I've got up on my wall right now. Yeah, that's actually what I'm still running as my main router. And then I've got the XR1000 as my desk system. And yeah, the R9000 has been chugging along for quite a few years and rock solid.
Yeah. It's one of our most reliable routers. I mean, we still sell that one pretty well. A lot of those Wi-Fi 5 routers are they're bulletproof, which is great. So I'm glad it's still working for you, and hopefully we can get Prem's R9000 back up and running. Comment here from Warrior. There should be an update on the XR1000 where it should let you choose what firmware you want to use, either the NETGEAR Genie or Duma OS instead of being a double-layered firmware. So NETGEAR Genie is more or less retired, and you're not going to find that on any of our newer products. We've moved on to the Nighthawk app. So I think your point still stands though. Like if you want to use the Nighthawk firmware on your computer, yeah, maybe that's a feature that we can add in there. But if you do want to use kind of like a more traditional Nighthawk or NETGEAR Genie experience, you could download the Nighthawk app, and there's a lot more surface level tweaks you can make with that are quite simple on your phone. So I would advise using that if that's kind of what you're going after. But yeah, we appreciate the comment. We'll definitely, suggest that.
Yep, and not sure whether or not they'd be able to do that or not inside the firmware of the router, because all of that software to make the GUI of the Doom OS, for instance, takes up a lot of room in memory.
Right.
And to be able to swap between the Doom OS interface and the standard NETGEAR interface, they'd need to actually have, probably not twice, because the Doom OS has a lot more modules than our standard firmware GUI, but they need to have, maybe twice the amount of data in memory to be able to flip back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are there's not enough storage space in memory on those units to be able to do that, because those routers, they have a lot of processing power, decent amount of memory, but we're using most of that to be able to do what they do. So the only way you'd be able to do something like that is if they actually offered up two different firmwares that you could flash. One would be flashing with the old or the Nighthawk design of your interface, and the other one, which would be the Duma OS interface. I could definitely say they wouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. Running two separate firmware tracks is a pain in the butt. Had to do that in another company I was in, and it's not something you ever want to do. So chances are they wouldn't be able to do it. There would be physical limitations on the amount of power that the system has to be able to have both of those.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. And I think that's largely why we've made it compatible with the Nighthawk app, is that's run, I believe, off of the router itself. It's run on your phone, so it doesn't really have that integration issue of having both on one device. So I think your best bet with kind of achieving that kind of ideal scenario that you mentioned would be using the Nighthawk app.
Yep. And I see Vanessa asked about CES, which is something I know a lot about since I've been there many times for NETGEAR. And yes, still held in Vegas. It's going to be virtual again, I believe, in January. I know that we won't be doing it live this January, but we are planning on doing it the following year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's still at the same place at the Las Vegas Convention Center, and hopefully to get back there, sometime.
Definitely. It'll be nice to have the in-person conventions again. Cool. Okay, we have a question here from Steven. And Steven asks, hi, how do I troubleshoot denial of service attacks? I get this and other denial of service attack messages every day. Are you getting denial of service attacks every day, or is it a false alarm?
Or are you seeing this, basically you're looking at your log files and seeing that your router is getting pinged a lot from some other device out on the internet that is hitting it. And normally if you get any sort of a either DOS or a probing attack, usually you don't get DOS attacks because that's a ton of hits that flood your internet connection to the point where you can't go out to the internet anymore. Mm-hmm. But you often will get probing attacks where basically there are systems out on the web that are just pinging random IP addresses, trying to see if there's an open port there that they can get in. And if you see those in your log files in the router, that's great. it's already taken care of. The router stopped that. It said, okay, there was a connection that was trying to get in. We didn't allow it in. And that's the reason why there was that listing in the log files. Yeah, normally if you haven't opened up anything on your router, then those types of attacks or probes, they just get bounced by the router and it ends up as a listing in the log file.
Yeah, so I wouldn't sweat it. Basically, just as long as you're not noticing any impact on your internet connection, you're in good shape. So,
yep. And they're really, for DOS attacks, other than blocking them, like what your router is doing, there's not a lot you can do beyond that, because you can't stop those systems from out on the internet from sending requests to your IP address. You can't actually do anything to them. All you can do is stop them from getting through your router to your local network. And normally your router is going to deny those requests. The problem is if you get a ton of requests from hundreds or thousands of machines all at the same time, you're still stopping all of those, but your router has to process every single one of them, which means it eats up all your processing power, all your internet bandwidth, so you can't actually go out to the internet. And that's what people do with a lot of companies when they get a huge DOS attack, is they have millions of these bots on people's machines where they've got viruses and they don't know it, that are all told, okay, start sending requests to this IP address. And so you get thousands, tens of thousands of them hammering away all at the same time, which basically is like a traffic snarl. Everything grinds to a halt because there's so much activity trying to go through that one point at the same time.
Oops. Just kicked over my trash can. I don't know if you guys heard that. Sorry about that. But yes, really good information. I think that's not even just for the person that asked the question, but for all the viewers, that's really good information to know with how important cybersecurity is becoming today, and how many smart devices exist. A lot of these smart devices are vulnerable, so it's good to know how people are getting into them and how you can avoid that. Cool. We have a question here from Frostwolf, who's asking for our suggestion for their setup, which we love these kinds of questions. Frostwolf says, I will update my Wi-Fi network. My plan is to have one SSID for phones and laptops and one SSID for smart devices like Philip Hue, and one guest network. My go-to will be one main router with LTE backup or boosts would be better. What are some options? So, your criteria for having an LTE backup is going to drastically reduce your options. That's a very specific feature that we do have on some products, but not many products. It's fairly niche. So in that realm, I would suggest the LBR20, because that's going to also allow you to have multiple access points, which you mentioned you wanted up to 3 access points. So you could create a mesh network with that, and have that LTE fallback while still kind of having the traditional coax connection as your main source of internet. You should be able to split up your network into a 2.4 gigahertz band and a 5 gigahertz band in order to, kind of separate your two types of devices, like laptops and phones versus smart devices. So that would be my suggestion. Do you guys have any suggestions?
No, that was definitely the direction that I was looking at.
Do we have any LTE modems? Just modems?
Not. I think most of them are discontinued.
Yep.
Like modem router combo, at least. We should have an LTE modem, maybe one.
Yeah, if it is something we have, it's going to be an older product. Now,
well, actually, that's not true. The LM1200, which is the newest one, that is our latest LTE modem, which is strictly a modem.
Got it. Yeah, I would say ideally you're getting Wi-Fi 6, and the LVR20 is Wi-Fi 5. So while it is, in my opinion, a great system, I wouldn't want to sacrifice Wi-Fi 6 personally. So I'd say your better option would be get the LM 1200 and set that up with something like, if you want 3 access points, um, an RBK 754 or an RBK 854, get that 4 pack. You'll have a router and then 3 satellites running Wi-Fi 6. You'll have that LTE backup. That would be a great system. I think that's my number one suggestion. Although if you're looking to not spend that much money, I would say the LVR 20 is also a great option. It just depends.
And also, he mentioned that he's running his NAS on the web online.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean that you've got your storage online and that's where your NAS, that's what you're considering as a NAS, or you've just made your NAS available, online? Because I hate to think about the amount of data that would be transferred back and forth if you were trying to store all your NAS files on the web.
Mm-hmm.
With the data caps, that can be a real pain.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I'll definitely say you want to keep your NAS within your network. You don't want to upload your files to the web and then have them download back via the same internet plan. You're really going to be using a ton of data.
Oh yeah.
Which is not worth it. Definitely try to keep that within your network. I personally advocate for hardwiring your NAS as much as you can. Because even when it's within your network, if you're doing it wirelessly, you're really going to be slowing down your network. I mean, that's going to take a lot of bandwidth.
Yep.
Unless you can kind of throttle it back, which, you could do, but then you're really digging deep into like the technicals of, tinkering with your network. I would say just hardwire it personally. I have mine hardwired via a wall plug, and it runs pretty quick. Although I haven't tested it in my new apartment, so hard to say. Could be really slow.
Oh, and Ren brought up a good point on the denial of service attacks, which is Ren says he turns off his ping, which I always think of as you should never have that turned on in the first place, because you don't want your router to be responding to random ping requests on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to have an outside system pinging your router. Normally, anything that you do with your router and you want it to come from your local LAN going out to open up the connection. You don't want things from the outside coming in unless you've already got specific ports set up. So yeah, definitely by default, the ping should be turned off on the router. If not, make sure the ping is turned off on your router, because you don't want that. You don't want your router to be so easily visible. I know in the past, one of the ways that hackers would find systems to start trying to hack into is you just run a script and you give it an IP range of 10,000 IP addresses, and it just pings each IP address. And any IP address that actually responds back, it then drops into a log file. So now you have a much smaller set saying, okay, these are systems that I know are out there and will respond. And then they start using heavier hacking tools trying to actually break into it. So good call, definitely something you should make sure is turned off.
Absolutely. You want to take all of your, do as much preventative maintenance as possible, find all these settings that you can change, like per Michael's suggestion, and change them. Maybe there's more that we aren't suggesting. There's other things you can do to protect yourself. So it's worth looking into.
The one thing I don't suggest is turning off your SSID broadcast, because I know a lot of people who are worried about your wireless signal going out there and someone hacking in through your wireless. By turning off the broadcast, then they normally shouldn't be able to see it. There's tools that allow you to see even hidden ones, but in general, they wouldn't actually see the SSID being broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a good idea, but there's a ton of wireless hardware that has problems if you're not actually broadcasting your SSID. So once you turn that off, you may have a lot of devices, especially IoT devices around the home, if they're connected wirelessly, that won't be able to connect in anymore.
Right.
So,
We had that example last week with somebody who said their Mac couldn't connect to their 5 gigahertz band. And, we were talking about how Macs have certain issues seeing individual characters of
oh, yes.
bands. Certain characters can mess it up, and you can only imagine how messed up it would get if you turn the band off or the SSID off entirely. Certain things, it just doesn't work very well. So
Yeah, so
bear in mind.
It's a good idea that doesn't work well.
Yeah. Good. There's like a subreddit. It's like good taste, poor execution. I think it's the other way around.
Yes.
Bad taste, good execution, something like that. Cool. So I think we're all caught up here. Frostwolf, if you've got any follow-up questions on what we think you should do for your network, let us know. We love answering those kind of questions. We've got Vanessa Kitty getting almost a gig down. That's great speeds. Definitely love to see that. I think we're all caught up.
Yeah. I want to know how Vanessa Kitty is managing to hardwire her cell phone to the router.
Apple dongles, man. They
Some
got $1
sort of
million.
dongle, yeah.
Okay, that'll do it. I don't do Apple stuff, so I don't know that stuff.
I remember I used to manage the Nighthawk Pro Gaming Instagram, and something that I saw that was pretty common, kids love mobile games these days, and they're getting like competitive mobile games. They're really serious about it. Like COD Mobile, people were like serious about that game. Anyways, he was asking if he could hardwire his phone to his router, and I'm thinking to myself, is this something that people do like regularly now for online like mobile gaming? Because all of us are so used to like PC, console. These things are easy to hardwire. But yeah, now you got kids using their phones over Ethernet. That's awesome.
I've never hardwired a phone to my PC, and can't even think of a reason why I would do it. But there's got to be a reason.
Yeah.
I don't think SmartBait's question ever showed up in chat. Can you repost your question, SmartBait? We never saw it. I looked again.
I just scrolled through to see if I could find it, and I wasn't able to find it either.
Yeah, SmartBait, go ahead and repost that question. We'll answer the question. We definitely try our best not to miss any questions. Frostwolf says, my NAS is hardwired, but I always need online access. So it sounds like you're probably trying to remote access it from outside the home, so it needs to always be connected to the internet, which is understandable. If you're running like a Plex server or something that's publicly used.
Or if you're even just using it for business and you keep your business files on it as you go to go off site, and you still need access to that. And that would make a lot of sense, having the LTE backup on it. So you're guaranteed that you always have internet connection, even if your main internet goes down.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like I did mention it's a niche use case, but it sounds like for you, it's necessary. So yeah, definitely something like the LM 1200 that we linked above, or the LBR 20, two great solutions to have a fallback. I personally don't have any experience with how the fallback works, but it's instantaneous, isn't it? It's a pretty quick switch from
the LBR 20 should, as soon as you lose connection on your main line, it should directly fall over to the cellular. So there might be a second or two delay there as it makes that connection, because it doesn't want to have it constantly pushing data back and forth through the cellular connection, because that'll eat up a lot of data for no reason. But yeah, it's seamless, and it's quick enough that it's doing exactly the same job. Think of it kind of like when you have the backup power supplies at your home if the power goes out, and then that generator kicks in. It takes a second, but then it pops right up.
Michael, do you know if the LM1200 can do that? Because I saw it had a LAN and a WAN port on the back of it, and I was trying to find in the user manual if you could hook up a cable modem to it and use it as a failover.
The answer is not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, they are looking at opening that up in firmware, in a future firmware, but currently, no. In fact, when you get the unit, that one of those two Ethernet ports actually has a plastic cover on it.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, they are planning on adding it to it. Yeah. And I
Cool.
saw Vanessa's answer about connecting the phone up with the dongle. And she mentions that she has USB 3 hub with micro SDs plugged in to run a disk pack for classes. That sounds, great, because that way you're basically have a mini PC there that you're running all of that stuff for your classes off of. So very cool.
Yeah, a lot of these mobile devices are just edging closer and closer into the realm of like a full-blown workstation, which is crazy. Like you look at the Windows Surface, the tablet, it's like it's got Windows 10, it runs Windows 10. They've been doing that for years. And then Apple went in that same direction with the iPad. They put the M1 in the iPad. I mean, it's a beast of a computer and
Yeah.
it's thin.
I've seen those Asus Android phones that you can dock and they become a
Right.
PC on a window
Yep.
on a monitor. They've been trying that forever too.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
the Android like dockable systems, those they've got like a whole different UI that shows up on your screen, as I recall, and that's been around for a while too. I remember when I was in high school, there was one where it's like it was specifically designed where like the phone connects to this like it's like a proprietary like laptop
Oh yeah,
looking thing, and
yeah.
it's got a dock on it. Those are quite cool. So yeah, it's been around for a while and it's getting better and better. So that's cool.
I wonder if the filter's getting rid of SmartBait's questions. We haven't seen it pop up yet.
Yeah, it might
Okay,
be too long that it's breaking it up or something, or it's like not letting it go through.
I have to show
Yeah,
this
SmartBait,
to
there's a limit.
Vanessa. I have to show this to Vanessa because she mentioned that she connected a keyboard and mouse up to the phone through a dongle and Bluetooth as well. Well, if you see this thing right here, this is actually a laser keyboard and mouse. And this hooks up to your phone. You just put it on the desk. It projects a keyboard onto your desk that you can use, and you can hit one key to switch that over to use it as a mouse pad as well.
That's cool.
Very, very cool. If you really want to go high techy, that's a way to go.
That is cool. I've seen those before. I've never actually tried it though.
They're okay. If you're a really fast typist, you definitely wouldn't want it because it takes a fraction of a second for it to recognize where your finger's at. But
Got
a
it.
medium speed typing and clean typing, and it works.
Okay, so SmartBait, there is a 200 character limit on questions, so you might be breaking the limit. So you might need to break it up into multiple messages for us to see it because we haven't seen it yet. It has not come through.
Yep.
You can see at the bottom of the chat, there's like zero. For me, it says like 0 out of 200 characters. If you're going over that, it's not going to send. So maybe try again. Try splitting it up. Frostwolf says, I also have battery power for my NAS switch and router in case the city power fails. If you got that, you're never going offline. So that's awesome. That plus an LTE modem or router, like you're online forever unless the ISPs go down.
And also for those people that are using NASs, you really want to have them on a battery backup. If for no other reason than if the power goes out, even for 2 or 3 seconds, when the NAS comes back on, normally it's going to go into what's called resync mode, which means that because the power instantly went out and it may not have written everything from its cache down to the hard drives, it has to now go and do a data verification across all of your disks. And it'll do it in the background, so it's not stopping you from being able to use your NAS. But your NAS overall performance is going to go down a fair amount because it has to spend all this processing time checking the data while you're using the NAS. So having the battery backup at least takes care of those intermittent blips when the power goes, down, or if the power happens to go off completely, it gives you a chance, if you're on site, to go and gracefully power the NAS down instead of having it crash, which is the same thing as like if you pull the plug on a PC and it instantly goes off. But with NASs especially, because they cache a lot of stuff in active memory before they write it, it has to go through that. So yeah, battery backups, absolutely.
Good to know. Good to know. And for anybody in chat that's trying to run a similar system to Frostwolf, it seems like Frostwolf's kind of doing all their, taking all the diligence that they can in order to stay online all the time, and good like use case, or a good kind of like test case for somebody that's doing it right, good example rather. Cool. So we have the question from SmartBait that came in, and SmartBait asks, daily I can get between 1 and 10 alerts from Insight that my second floor WAC 540 is offline. Is this alert just saying Insight can't see it online, or is it saying the AP is actually down? I never get these alerts from my first floor WAC 540. A few times I found that the second floor AP is completely off. I have to unplug it and plug it back into the GS305 EP to get it going again. Same port. This is a hard question to answer because it sounds like your system that you're running has a lot of moving parts. You got the switch, you got the WAC 540, and presumably you have a business router, or maybe you're using it at home. It's probably not an issue with your router if you're not seeing any problems with the other access point. I feel like it's something you've probably already tried, but I would say maybe plug it into a different port on the GS305 and see if the issue persists. You could have some issue with that port. Okay, they're using a home router, so it's probably not an issue with your home router.
Are these PoE, Michael?
I'm double checking that. Yes, these are PoE switches. And well, a couple of things. First of all, for SmartBait, your first question about, is the alert just saying the Insight can't see it online, or is it saying the AP is actually down? Unfortunately, that's exactly the same thing for Insight. Insight is saying, I can't see the AP. It may be down. It could be offline. It could be rebooting. There's no way that Insight's going to know. It's saying that it can't talk to it right now. So that's the equivalent of being down or being offline. If you've gone up there a couple of times and it was completely off, then that's at least one of the cases when, yeah, it's actually down. Your AP is no longer running. Switching over your cable to another port sounds like a good idea. It could be that the power coming out of that PoE port is fluctuating, which it shouldn't, but if the port's starting to go bad. My guess, though, is it's probably your WAC 540 or the cabling going to your WAC 540 on the second floor that's causing the problem. So first, try another port. I'm guessing you probably already have, but try another port, see if the problem continues. If that doesn't, try swapping out a cable, even if you have to just temporarily run a cable from that upstairs to it, just to see if the problem persists, because it very easily could be a bad cable, or the AP itself is flaky, and that's what's causing your problem.
Yeah, that's my thoughts. Flaky power connection over the PoE to the WAC if you're finding it completely shut off and no power at all to it.
And as much as we want this to not be the case, maybe the port on the WAC 540 is bad. If you're running PoE, and that is where it's getting its power from, that could be bad too. But
and one other thing I was going to say is also overheating. Depending on where you actually have that and how hot it's getting where it's at, overheating issues can cause a thermal shutdown as well. Depending on if it's in your home and your home has air conditioning, or it doesn't actually get that hot where it's at, then that wouldn't be a problem. But if you put it in some place where the temperature can get really high, thermal shutdown is also another option.
Yeah, that's a good thought, SmartBait. Swap the APs and see if it happens to the one that's good at the same place with the same connections.
Yep, that's another good troubleshooting trick to just try to narrow down what's causing it.
Yeah, I would also say before swapping it, I would say that should be the last thing you try. You might be able to isolate the issue. Well,
I think swapping would be better than some of the other things.
The issue. Actually, now that I think of it, yeah.
Yeah, running an Ethernet cable, a separate one just as a test, that takes a lot more
That'll take
work.
more
But
time,
swapping them
actually.
around helps because,
That's a good point.
well, obviously, if I was going to be doing this, the first thing I would do is plug it into a different port on the PoE.
Yeah, that'd be step one,
That's
definitely, because that's easy.
first step. If that takes care of it, then it's just a bad port or a port that's going flaky on the PoE switch. If it still happens with that, then you can try swapping the 2 units around. And if it turns out that the unit that you have downstairs, when you move it upstairs, it starts having the same problem, then it's either going to be down to bad cable or bad PoE switch.
Yeah. Yeah, we always say like find ways to isolate the issue, like check off the the potential process of elimination, figure out what it could and couldn't be. And then you can really, make a game plan for how to fix it.
And when you're doing the process of elimination, always try to do the easiest ones first, the stuff that takes the least amount of time to test, and then work your way up to the harder ones, just so that if it turns out that it's something really simple, you can quickly test it, get it fixed, and you're not spending too much time on it.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, we're getting towards the end of the show, so if you got any more questions, like definitely get them in. We love to answer questions, and we're happy to rapid fire any of those last minute questions that come in. Also,
and
as a
don't forget
reminder,
to hit that like.
yeah, I was just gonna say that. Hit the like button.
Excellent.
We're almost to 20. Maybe let's hit 20. But the more likes we get, the more people can see that the show is going on, and the more people can find the recap. We have some good viewership on the recaps. People come and check them out after the fact, and hopefully it helps people. That's what we're here to do. Cool. So I did miss a question here from Kieran. What phones do we have, and does it have Wi-Fi 6? Well, I can start. I have a iPhone 12 Pro. Oh, iPhone 12 Pro. And it does have Wi-Fi 6. I believe. Yeah, it has Wi-Fi 6. I don't have a Wi-Fi 6 router, unfortunately. I'm looking to get one maybe soon. We'll see. But yeah, it has Wi-Fi 6. What about you guys?
Well, the phone that I have is actually an older Samsung phone, but I do have the Samsung 12S Ultra because I spoke to our events manager and said I need one so that I can actually use it to test and show off things, especially once trade shows start happening. And so that actually supports 6E. So I'm looking forward to using that to test the RAX E500 and just see how far and how fast the 6E channel goes.
Do you mean the 21?
Or the 21, yes.
Okay.
21.
I just wanted to make
Sorry,
sure.
got the number wrong.
No, it's okay.
Dyslexic number.
I only have a Pixel 3a. I don't really care about keeping up the latest and greatest phones. There's other technology I'd rather keep up on than phones.
Yeah, like Darren is one of the handful of people that has both an new Xbox, and a PS5.
Yep.
So you must be good at checking out fast.
Yep. Persistent.
Kieran says, cool, I have the Oppo Find X2 Pro, but I miss the iPhone so much after using the iPad. Yeah, it's it's just a preference thing. Like I had an Android for so long, longer than I've had an iPhone, and I could see myself switching back at some point. It's hard to say, it just you get used to one and you go to the other. The real thing about the iMessage or about the iPhone is iMessage. Like you don't want to be that person that makes the text green.
And Ricky B asks, any suggestions for a 2-bay NAS? Well, the first thing I would say is go for a 4-bay NAS, not a 2-bay NAS.
Yep.
Because with 2 bays, you're limited too much. One of the biggest reasons you want to get a NAS is you want redundancy. So if a hard drive happens to fail, you don't lose all your data, and hopefully it'll continue running until you can replace the hard drive. On a 2-bay NAS, you only have 2 options. You can either run it as one large volume, which means there's no data redundancy at all, or you run it as mirrored drives. And with mirrored drives, that means that you lose 50% of your data because you're mirroring all of that over to the second drive. If you go to a 4-bay, you have a lot more flexibility on what you can do, including running RAID 5, which means that you only lose, if you have 4 drives in there, you only lose about 25% of your storage space instead of 50%, because it uses the equivalent of 1 drive for its data integrity. And you can lose any one of those 4 drives and it'll still continue to run. So my recommendation is go for a 4-bay NAS better than instead of a 2-bay if you can afford it, because 2-bays are really, really limited. And I can definitely recommend the Ready NAS products because they have something called Flex RAID, which means that it allows you for expansion over time, both horizontally and vertically, which means you could start off with just 1 drive in a 4-bay, you put your second drive in, and it's automatically going to configure those now to be mirrored drives. And when you toss in a 3rd drive, it then configures that over to RAID 5. And then a 4th drive, it just expands it out as a RAID 5 volume. And it also means that you can take a drive out and put a larger drive in, it'll reconfigure it and use the extra space of the larger drive in that same volume. So there's a lot of functionality and a lot of flexibility there. And I've got a bunch of Ready NASs here and I absolutely love them.
I've got a 4-bay NAS in RAID 0 or RAID 1 mirroring.
Is it Ready NAS?
It's a Ready NAS, yeah.
Okay.
Can I switch it to RAID 5 anyway, in any way, without having to transfer everything off and transfer it back on?
If you set it up by default, it's in Flex RAID. And if it's in Flex RAID, you don't have to do anything. You can add another drive in there and it'll automatically expand. If you went in and you manually set the RAID setting that you want, so you went out of Flex RAID and you chose whether you wanted it in RAID 0 or RAID 1, then the only answer is copy all the data off, put it into Flex RAID, copy all the data back. But if you didn't make any changes, then it's in Flex RAID to start with. So it should automatically do that expansion.
Gotcha. I picked RAID 1, so.
Well, then you're stuck with that. You can't add another drive in there.
Stuck in RAID 1.
Yeah. Now you could put another drive in there and create a completely different volume, but it's not going to be part of that same volume as what you currently have.
Yeah, I might transfer everything off and transfer it back on because I definitely want like as much space as possible. Although I'm not even close to maxing it out. I have 4 8 terabyte drives in it.
Oh,
so
yeah, you're gonna have a little room.
I've got plenty of room. I've got like 16 terabytes of usable space. Like I'm not running out. I actually found, I asked one of the NAS engineers in the office, like, hey, do you have a spare one? And he gave me 3 8 terabyte drives, and a 4-bay NAS, and then they were these like very rare Seagate drives, and I went on OfferUp to try to find another one, and I found the same exact drive, same space. I was like, this is meant to be. Yeah, I love my NAS. NASs are great. Highly suggest them.
Absolutely.
Haven't checked. Just kind of talking about their NAS setup. You know, it's a rabbit hole. I mean, you can really, really dig deep into these NAS setups. I mean, it's almost like an enthusiast topic. Cool. Well, it looks like we are all caught up on the questions and we've reached the hour. So to everybody who is still watching, we appreciate your viewership. Thanks for engaging with us, for watching this show. We love doing this every week. It's our highlight, for sure. So, that's it for me. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we log off here?
Other than that, hope everyone, has a great weekend. Stay hydrated. It's hot out there across most of the country. If you're not in this country, hopefully you're not as hot as we are.
And
Absolutely.
Yeah, haven't checked. This is La Jolla behind me. This is Torrey Pines. The U.S. Open's happening right now at Torrey Pines. Been watching it all day.
Oh, yeah, I saw somebody mention that. Mention La Jolla. I was like, good eye. Well, yeah, so that's it from us. Thanks for tuning in. And everybody have a safe, hopefully cool weekend. And we'll see you again next week.